type in the chat. Let us know if you can see us. Let me see in the chat. Okay. It looks like we're on. Okay, great. So if you're here, please make sure you leave us a comment. Let us know if you can hear us, if you can see us. I'm so excited for everybody to join today. This is the very first series or show in a new series that we're starting on this channel called What Men Think. And Caleb is here with us today. Caleb, thank you so much for coming on my channel and just being a part of the discussion today.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know you, maybe you can just give us like a little introduction. Who are you? What do you do? And yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a blue collar entrepreneur by day. That's my passion. And the other part of my day, my purpose is I'm a life coach. And so I work with people who are single, dating, getting out of a relationship, working through the pain of healing and moving on to a better life, discovering their purpose. So I'm originally from Pensacola, Florida, a small town. I'm an old country boy from Florida. I'm a part-time, I guess, YouTuber. Whenever I have time, I like to, put out some videos to encourage and give, my insight as a man, and hoping to inspire others. And ultimately, my goal as a believer is just to lead other people to Christ. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a pretty plain Jane, cut and dry guy, just beating to my own drum.
Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, I know that you have a YouTube channel. Obviously, that's how I found out about you. And for everybody, I will link Caleb's YouTube channel, his Instagram down below. You definitely have to check it out. I was hooked. I binge watched a few of your videos, and I think they're great. I always feel like in this space, we need more men to really, talk to women, but also to the guys. I think a lot of times there is no one really talking to the guys, and we're here waiting, waiting for them to step up.
Yeah.
So today the discussion is about how can a woman hold a man to her standards. And I want to jump right in because I think it's such an amazing topic. Standards are so important, but a lot of times we fail to set them, or if we set them, we have a hard time enforcing them. So my question to you, first and foremost, is, do you think women have too high standards? Are their standards too high?
No, definitely not. I think more women need to develop high standards, or just stick to them. The world is always changing. There's always going to be a battle back and forth between men and women. Just, we're kind of coming out of an era where women, the generation before us, maybe our parents' generation, where women felt demeaned and felt like they had no voice, and like enough's enough. And then the Me Too movement, has risen, and so like women are really on top right now. You got a lot of women who are educating themselves, bettering themselves, starting businesses, expanding their brand. And so it's good for women to keep their standards high, because if they keep their standards high and not settle, it will force men to step up. But oftentimes what I see is a lot of women who will start out strong, like, I'm not going back through what I went through. I'm going to keep my standards high. I know what I want this time. And then after waiting for a while, getting a little weary, and then like giving in and settling for somebody who I like to put in the category of like maybe like 75%. They meet most of your standards and all of your preferences, and because they meet all of the eye candy and everything that you physically want, and you're tired of waiting, I see a lot of women who just settle and just give in. So it's definitely important to have standards, but it's more important to stick to them and hold them out,
Right. And I think you said a really, really good thing, because I have to stick up here for the girls, is that a lot of times we go into it with the best intentions, right? We're like, this time we're going to do it differently. We're going to have standards, boundaries, the whole shebang. But really what happens, and I know that goes for a lot of my clients, a lot of my friends, and for myself back in the day, we go in strong, but then we get scared. We get scared that our standards, even though they're not, might be too high, or we come up too strong, and then we kind of lower them because we don't want to turn someone off, right? So how do you think can a woman portray her standard without coming on too strong, too harsh, or turn him off? Like, how can she do that?
By actions, by living them first. I hear a lot of women who try and tell a man this is her standards, this and that. But when it's truly you, when you believe in your standards and you live your life based on your standards, you don't have to say much, you know. So I think that's the important thing is being true to yourself and being true to your standards. And that's why it's so important in your single season to really work on you and to work on you 100%. Because I
Right.
also see a lot of people who like do the work 75% and feel like, you know, I'm ready, I have high standards. And then it's a representation whenever somebody comes along and they settle for somebody who's 75%. So ultimately, like you're showing like, okay, like you got some things you still need to work on so that way you can fully 100% commit to yourself and commit to like, these are my standards and not, you know, settle in the long run. It's kind of like for me, I went fishing last weekend with my dad and my grandfather. And
Mhm.
I'm the type of fisher, like when I go out, like I have a standard for what I want to catch and I stick to my standard, you know? So if I go out and I catch a fish that's too small, I'm not going to second guess myself about like, well, it's still a fish. Well, I've been out fishing for 2 hours and I haven't caught anything else. It's like, no, this isn't what I want, and throw it back in the water. I think we
Mhm.
have to be willing to walk away from people and situations that don't meet our standards, but we first have to make sure we're walking in that and we're committed to it first. I think that's the biggest key is just allowing your spirit to be so in tune with who you are and what you want that you don't waver for anything less.
Right. And I think that is a really, really good point, because that's something that I always try to really like instill in my clients, is that we're not setting boundaries and standards for the other person. It's really something you set for yourself. And that's the only way they're going to work, right? We all know if you're trying to lose weight just for that one moment, that one event, that's what's happened once that event is over. You fall back to bad habits, right? So
Yeah.
I the same thing. It's really like you have to have this lifestyle, this mindset for yourself that includes standards, boundaries, and a way you want to be treated in order for them to really work. So I love what you just said. I think it really makes sense. So I think that is all amazing advice, right? But reality is that a lot of times when we go out and we date, we feel like we have been holding on to our standards, our desires, our expectations, and we just don't find that person who wants to live up to it. Or we will date someone, right, and it falls apart because he didn't want to meet these standards, but then he's going to date someone new, and suddenly he has leveled all the way up. What do you think is the difference between a woman that can inspire a man to basically live up to her expectations, and a woman who kind of has a hard time to inspire a man to live up to these expectations?
Oh, that's, I mean, it's easy. When you meet a woman who lives her life based off what she believes, it's different. Her aura is different. She's true to
Mhm.
who she is as a woman. She walks in her essence and she's just not tolerating foolishness. A
Right.
woman that really allows a man to hunt. You don't really see that today. Again, just some people when they're weary, they're tired of waiting, they just settle, and then you know, and instead of really making the man work to
Mhm.
really hunt and pursue and really prove himself and show, it's just kind of like I see some people just fall down, pray, and just like, you know, come get me, like I'm here. You know,
Right.
like it's work. It takes time. Even whenever you do meet someone that you're interested in, don't be so easy or thirsty. Like calm down, relax. Doesn't mean that they're the one. I just see so many people that rush, especially in our generation because of social media. You
Right.
know, you're scrolling through social media all day, and social media is created to keep feeding you what you're already interested in. So if you're looking at other people's relationship goals and marriage stuff, you're constantly pumping that into your spirit, and so you're rushing yourself, you know,
Right.
constantly. So it's just one of those things, just really living it out in your single season. That's why it's important for you to really become 100% whole. I have not found many people who know how to be 100% single. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is solely focused on you. And for me as a believer in my relationship with God, most
Right.
people are kind of like I said, 75, 50%. I meet a lot of people who are great, but just not there yet. Like, just calm down. It's an opportunity for all of us who want to be with someone. The end goal should be marriage. And
Right.
so it should not be an easy task. And that's what we want. We
Mhm.
want that microwave, like, oh, it's ready. No,
Mm.
it's an opportunity for two people to come together, to create a whole. I
Right.
see a lot of people who are just off kilter and unequally yoked coming together and just creating mess and drama. And that's why we see, especially in the US, so
Mm.
many high divorce rates. I think it's like 50, 60% divorce rate, because everybody is so ready to date, but everybody's not ready to marry. And
Right.
so again, to step back and to think about your single season, when you focus on you and you become 100%, you decide, hey, I'm ready to date. Your intention has to be like, I'm doing this for marriage. So let me
Yeah.
slow down. Let me really pay attention to this process. It's like treating ourselves as a business. We're not just going to hire anybody just to come into our business, because they may not meet our standards. They may cause us to do something illegal. They might be slackers. They just may not be who we need for our business. So we have to slow down and really screen people. And,
Mm.
and that's, again, just to go back, it's just so important in your single season to know who you are, be sound in you. So therefore, when you look at other people, you have an eye, you have a discernment for what you're looking for. And if you see something that this isn't what I'm looking for, this is a red flag, this is going to bring my business down, then this isn't the person for me. And you have to be willing to walk away,
Right.
versus a lot of that desperation is set in, like, oh, like, am I going to find somebody else? You got to hold to that standard, like stick to it and just really believe it and live it.
Yeah. And I think, first of all, I think it's hilarious that you use the business as an analogy. It's really very masculine, but you're getting it to the point, because I think one thing that our generation believes is that whenever a relationship doesn't work out, whenever there's a breakup, it's actually a failure. Right? A lot of times, especially for women, right? Because a lot of us women, especially if we're women who are in Christ and looking for a godly relationship, right? So every time we date with the assumption that, hey, this could lead to marriage. So when this relationship fails, a lot of us, we feel like a failure because we couldn't make it down the aisle. And I think that is the wrong approach, because like in a business, right? Sometimes you leave a job that was perfectly fine, but just because the season has ended, or because it wasn't the right fit. So after
Yeah.
5 months, you realize, hey, this is not the right fit. I need to go somewhere where I think I can serve better and I will be served better. So I think that is one thing I really want to point out, which I love that you use the business, because when it comes to business, we understand that. But when it comes to our own life, we shame ourselves and blame ourselves for not making it work. I just want to, guys, if you have any questions, leave them in the chat. I love what Christina says. She said, my standards are what I feel should be the basic standard of a civil human being. But she feels like it's so hard to find. And of course, we just touched on it. I think the importance there is to keep your hope up, right? Is to believe that your standards are valid, right? And that you're worthy of having them met. Yeah.
And I hear and I'm sure she didn't mean it in any particular way, but she said it's so hard to find. And I feel you on that. But the one thing that I've really learned in my season is to let go,
Right.
to not look for anything, to just let it happen, especially for those of us of faith. Like, we have to just believe that God is going to send that perfect person on his timing, and just solely focus on him. But again, like I said, many of us are 75%. A lot of us, again, in our generation, sometimes I have to catch myself, even when I'm driving, right? Instead of solely focusing on the road and focusing on what I'm doing at hand, sometimes I'm peeking at my phone. I'm
Right.
looking at my phone, I'm checking emails, I'm responding to text messages, versus solely focusing on what really matters and what's life or death to me. And
Right.
so again, that's why I said I like to make the comparison that we got a lot of people who are 50 and 75% because they cannot fully focus.
Right.
And it's one of those things where somebody told me one time, the need for nothing attracts everything. So
Oh,
I've learned to
I,
stop looking, to just let it come to me. And God hears our prayers. So every day we don't have to keep saying the same prayer. You have to give God room to bless you with that opportunity. Like if you're constantly expecting a gift, it's no fun when you actually receive it. Versus when it hits you like out of the, like on your blind side, you're like, whoa, like I never expected this coming. So if we can solely focus on the road and just solely focus on driving our journey, our purpose, our relationship with God, then we give an opportunity for God to bless us with that special someone, because we're showing him that, God, you matter more than anything else in this world. You have my focus, you have my attention. Because if God blesses you with somebody and you're not whole, that person will become your idol. That person will become your God. And so when you were already not focused in the car and you're kind of peeking at your phone and God gives you that person now, you're definitely not going to focus on the road,
right.
whenever that person comes in. So it's just, I don't know. It's just my perspective.
Yeah, and I think I love that. And I think it's so important for all of us to hear it from you, to hear it from a guy, because I think a lot of us really forget, right, how men approach these things. And that's why I had to start a series of what men think, because I always want to drive home the point that there are great God-fearing men like you out there who have a reason why they're not in a relationship, and that it doesn't always mean that they don't want to commit, they have commitment issues or something, but there are some people who really acknowledge the fact that, hey, this is not my time yet, and I'm not supposed to be dating. And I want us women to feel just as comfortable in it. But one thing that I wanted to touch on that you were talking about a little bit earlier was that allowing a man to step up to the plate, right? And I talk a lot about feminine energy as well, because I think in this kind of like boss babe hustle generation that we're in, right? Boss chicks,
Yeah.
we are all very much groomed to be bosses all the time because we've learned in the work environment that it serves us well. But I want you to just explain to us, why does a man value a woman who actually steps back and does not call the shots? What is it that men like about that?
For me personally, I believe God gave us a hierarchy for a reason. If we go on to read Ephesians 5, Paul breaks it down about how we're supposed, as men, we're supposed to submit to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are supposed to love our wife as Christ loves the church, and our wife is supposed to submit to us. So there's an order, right? And so, and like you said, in today's generation, you got like, be a boss, be this, and that. And I get it, because of past hurt, past pain, maybe depending on a man, or if you grew up in a household where your mother depended on a father and then he left, like, I get it. But, and you said something else about being groomed in the workplace and also about on social media.
Yeah.
It's one of those things too. We have to be careful what we allow to influence us.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to see things. It's okay to be in this world, but do not be of it.
Mm-hmm.
Remember who you are, remember your root, and remember what the Bible tells you, what God has given you. That's what we're supposed to live by. And I think, again, just going back, we're kind of like 50-50. We're 50-50 like in my relationship with God, and 50-50 like with the world and what's going on and trying to keep up with what's trending, versus like, no, just solely 100% just focus on God and that standard. But to get back to the main point, as a man, it's so beautiful to be able to meet a woman who's true to her essence, where she can influence me without saying a whole bunch, where she understands that hey, I have my special power and I have my weakness, but also as a man, I understand that I have my strengths as well and I have my weaknesses. And so we mesh, it balances out, opposites attract. I'm not trying to be in the same household with the boss. We can rule together. I want a queen. I say bosses take losses, but queens get rings. There's a hierarchy. There's a place for everything. But again, we just have to stop plugging into the world and stop looking at what other people are doing. Get back to the basics, get back to your root, and stay committed to it 100%. But I see more and more of that. And today, more women taking on a masculine energy, because I think naturally women desire to be married and bring it up and talk about it more than men do, and they desire to have kids, you know. And but I also see um, like I see a lot of women who are like very like career driven and like money driven, and like that's great. And then I see women who get older, like between their 30s and like 35s, and they're like, ah, like okay, like this isn't like everything that I thought, like money, like I've been solely like focused on this versus like kind of like balancing it out, you know. I just encourage women to just stay true to who you are. I don't want a woman like trying to approach me or like, you know, get in my DMs and like ask me out for a date. Like, no, there's something in a man, there's something about hunting and working, you know, and
Right.
earning for something. The most attractive thing, I was having a conversation with one of my homeboys, and we were like, man, it's so attractive when a woman like
Please
ignores.
let us know. We want to know
Yeah.
these situations.
It's just, you know, there's nothing like the hunt. There's nothing like pursuing a woman and having to work for her and to show her your value. You know, I love when I meet a woman and she's just kind of like, ah, like, you know, I'm not really interested in you. And I have to really prove myself. And I think that's what women have to do. Not saying you got to play hard to get,
Right.
but allow a man to prove himself. You know your worth, you stick to your value and your worth, and just allow a man to hunt and pursue you. And I think that's where it starts in the dating phase, is the pursuit. You know,
Right.
that's how we can tell, like, where is this going to go? Like, are you pursuing him more? Are you just laying down and being easy prey? Are you making him, you know, pursue you and work for you?
Right.
But, yeah, sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent, but yeah, like, no, I see a rise in this whole like boss, like women thing, and I get it. But I personally, as a man, and also having spoken with other men about that, like at the end of the day, we still want to be leaders. You
Right.
know, we still want to be able to come together and understand that, hey, this is a partnership. We are a team. We are ruling this empire together as king and queen. But at the same time, we both have our place and our positions, and
Right.
let's play those positions well.
Right. And I think just, to really drive it home, what you're saying is not that there's anything wrong with being a boss, right? I think there are a lot of, especially Black women, making great moves in the world and building empires and building, just building brands for themselves, just like men are. And I think it's amazing. But I always tell people that it's not about you not being able to live out that part of you, but you need to know where it belongs. In the sense of, if you're looking for a man that can live out, that is a leader, that is a productive provider, and all these things, but you come in already kind of taking on that position, you don't allow him to do it. And I teach something that I call allow him to, and I say allow him to plan, pay, and pursue. So
Mhm.
yeah, so that you allow him to, like, especially in the dating phase, right? Allow him to plan. Don't tell him where to take you, when to take you, and all these things. Allow him to pay. Allow him to show you that he can take care of you financially, and allow him to pursue. Because a lot of us, right, we get so stressed when a guy doesn't call or text. So now we're the pursuer because we want to make sure that the outcome is what we
Mhm.
want. But that's that masculine energy. That's what a guy wants to do. He wants to decide, hey, is this really someone I like? So unless we allow him to be able to get in his head and make that decision, it's not our place to convince that, of course. So I really love that. I think it's so important to understand what it means to build this team together and how we can really make it strong. So I
Definitely.
want to look at some of the comments. We're getting a lot of amens. Caleb, you are enlightening us. That's awesome. And yeah, guys, I see Christina already dropped a few questions. Make sure you drop your questions now. We're gonna go into like two more questions on my side, and I think then we're gonna look at the questions from the chat. A lot of yes, come on, I love it. So one thing that I think is really interesting, and I know you've talked about it in your own videos before, and we touched on it just earlier today, is that this idea, right, that we have to settle in order. I think I posted something on Instagram this week or this today or yesterday, saying that sometimes you have to love yourself more than love being in a relationship. Just meaning that don't. compromise your standards in order to be in a couple, right? And especially if you're looking for a godly man, a godly relationship, something that happens a lot, and I'm pretty sure you've heard that before, is that a woman will desire a godly man, but she has been looking so long, has turned worried, and now she settles in a way for someone who is a Christian, but not really. Does that make sense? And
Mhm.
and when I ask, hey, why? A lot of times we justify it in our head, saying that, oh, I can change him. I think he grew up in a Christian household. So we want to stay in that relationship because we don't want to miss out that moment when he turns. And I think the best example is Kanye West because that's so wild, right? How he made that shift. So a lot of women, we kind of pray for that bad boy turned Christian mega superstar.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
I mean, I, I
Like,
take I have to keep taking it back to the Bible just because that's the
yeah,
doctrine. Like, want that, like, want a representation of Christ. Like, again, I think we have to unplug from what's going on in pop culture in the world. We have our phones on us so much that that's become our idol. We're, especially if we're constantly on social media, so many people do not know how to like unplug and to get off their phone, and they don't realize how much that's their influence. So if you spend out 2 or 3 hours every day on social media and you're looking at stuff, and you only spend 10 minutes every other day in your Bible, your doctrine has now become social media and pop culture versus the Bible. And so we've seen so much in movies, and it just goes to show how much this influences us and impacts the way we date and we see things. And especially for women, I know, like, just growing up, if you're constantly being pumped like Disney princess movies and love and romance, it's like,
I would say Hallmark movie. I can't lie.
yeah,
I,
yeah, and it strikes something in you. That's why we have to be careful about guarding our gates, and that's why I'm just very sensitive about being mindful of what I give into.
right,
But my standard is not based on like social media and pop culture. Because if
right.
I was a regular guy who was just lost in the sauce, had no relationship with God, and no like doctrine of like this is the standard I'm supposed to live by and abide by, then yeah, I would probably want a half naked chick who's twerking on Instagram, or constantly taking, bathroom pics and like skimpy clothing. That would be my standard, but that's not, because I don't allow that to influence me. I get
Right.
on and get off. So, and also to think about things spiritually. Like,
Mhm.
we can see things at a distance. We can look at celebrities and different people's relationships and it's attractive, right? But it doesn't mean that it's healthy.
Right.
If I'm constantly, attracted to junk food and I can't control that craving, then I'm going to become unhealthy because I'm constantly digesting that. Versus
Right.
knowing what's healthy for me does not always taste good. And another thing that I just have to be real about with myself and just how committed I am to God is, I say, you know what, God, if it's your will for me to be single the rest of my life, like, your will be done. Because
Mhm.
the thing is we all feel like marriage is the end all. That's the goal of like where we all have to be. That's going to complete us as human beings. Marriage is a beautiful thing for those of us who will experience it, but it is not a guarantee. The
Mhm.
one guarantee that the Bible gives us is eternal life with Christ Jesus. And I just think sometimes we get off on the wrong foot, focusing on the wrong things. And to get back to the main point, sorry, I go off on a long tangent, but I try and bring it back. Just be mindful of what you're putting in your spirit. Like, you think you want that, you think you want this bad boy, and you think you can change him, but you can't change anybody. That's why you have to focus on, you can't even change yourself. You know,
Right.
like, how often do people start like, all right, I'm going to do this, like, I'm going to start this new diet, or I'm going to
Right.
start waking up at such and such time. You can't even stick to that and commit to that. So how can you change somebody else? That's why we
Right.
need to allow God to come in and to renew us and put in the work, put in the effort to create habits and allow God to recreate us and become a whole being, so God can bless us with another whole being if that's our heart's desire, versus trying to like look and scope. And then when somebody comes along, like you're solely focused on getting with someone, you get them, and then you feel like I can change them. I've heard that so many times from women. I ask, are you the leader in the relationship? And they're like, no. Like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, are you the one that's constantly having to say, hey, babe, let's go pray? Like, or hey, do you want to go to church? Versus that's his role. But again, to get back to the, another question you asked me about the hierarchy and about our roles, the man is supposed to be the leader. And that is that reason right there. If he is not leading you to God, he is leading you where? He's just going to continue to be lost and just repeating a cycle. So,
and yeah, I think that is an amazing point. What I want to speak on is the part where you said whole, right? I think that's it right there, is that, yes, you can get into a relationship with someone that is not where you want them to be today, right? And then they have a Paul kind of road to Damascus situation happen, and from one day to the next they change. Can happen. But at the same time, I always tell people, how do you want to feel in the relationship, right? And it goes back to a lot of women want to be the one who is pursued, but then they get into the role of the pursuer. So it's the same thing. If you don't want to be in the role of the person who has to lead someone to Christ, which is not your position, then don't get with someone that needs leading, right? So I think that really says it. And then really just saying that, do I want to be with someone that is whole today? Or do I want to be with someone that might eventually be whole in 15 years down the line after I have had plenty of headaches and things? So I have two more questions, which you can answer probably really quickly. First thing that comes to your mind, what are 3 standards or expectations that you think women need to get rid of? And what are 2 standards or expectations that you think would serve women well to stick to?
Ooh, to get rid of.
Yeah, like
certain preferences, like allowing your preferences to outweigh your standards. And what I mean by preferences are things that are like physical or like just what you're attracted to in your carnal mind. Like letting those things go. Like even within myself, that's something I had to learn to like let go. And replace that with like, okay, the number one attribute needs to be Christ. Like we need to be equally yoked with that. If you're a believer, if that's your faith, so, and money is another thing, things have changed. We're no longer in the era where, sometimes women do stay at home. Stay at home moms is still a thing, but we have equal opportunity to go out and work. So so you might meet a man that makes less money than you. Or it's just the world's different. Like we can meet 50-50 on some things, but you still see just like some women who are just like money hungry. I want a guy who's a doctor. I want a guy who's a lawyer, like this and that. I've seen and heard so much with this whole like boss culture thing, more women like speaking out, more celebrities saying like, I can't date a guy who has a 9-to-5. That is so
yesterday. Oh gosh, I saw that video yesterday. I was
It is so ignorant. It is so ignorant. You're focused on what his money looks like and his date. Like, don't get me wrong, that is important. But these are the things that we focus on more than who that person is on the inside. What's their spirit like? So I think just overall is just getting away of like carnal minded things, and paying to who a person's character is, and seeing that potential that you can influence to grow and to come out even more. And lastly, I think for those of us who are not virgins, and we've experienced multiple people, sexpectations, and jumping into things physically way too soon. My personal belief is I desire to wait till marriage. I'm not a virgin. I have done things so out of whack in the past. The old person I used to be, I would not date or be on talking like I am today. But I think that's something else. I see so many people who, after a couple of dates, feel like they can give somebody their body, or just like, even holding hands. Like it's so powerful. Like when you touch someone else, when you embrace them for a hug. And so if you go all the way to sex, that's a whole nother issue or topic. But really, I think to replace that virtue is just patience. So many of us get weary in everything. And part of it's just our generation, what we've seen, everything so fast now, but just really understanding that patience is a virtue and just calming down, not being thirsty on both sides, both men and women. Calm
Right.
down, chill out, take a cold shower, and just learn to be patient. So I
Right.
hope I answered your question on both.
Awesome. No, I think it's really good. Like just really knowing that standards are different from preferences, right? And that we shouldn't give them the same amount of weight.
Yeah,
And also just understanding that you shouldn't, yeah, you shouldn't go after the things that kind of like God says, right? That won't last. That
yes,
you should look beyond, and you should look at the things that you can see, which also could be a part of the other person that isn't, I don't know, that isn't external, an external value. I want
yeah.
to look at some of the questions that the ladies led. Kendra said, what traits do you consider valuable in godly women?
Um, Confidence.
Confidence.
Confident, a woman who is sure of herself, and who is whole and who is healed, and who has done the work for herself, but not to get anything.
Mhm.
Um, so I have talked to women who will say they like when you first initially talk to them, like they're like, "Wow, this is a great catch." And my mentor always says, like, when you first meet someone, they're sending their representative. You know, we always put our best foot forward. But then when you really get to know someone, I've seen a lot of women in this day and age who are very insecure based on their past relationships, right? So I'm a very faithful and committed guy. The guy that I am today, I am doing my best to seek God's face every day and to be the man that He has called me to be. So if you are not 100% whole, meaning that you have allowed God to come in and to fill that void of like past insecurities, then that's something that you'll take on to a new relationship. And
Right.
that God might be the guy that God has for you, but because you have not healed or let go of things from your past, you're going to allow that past to come into a new relationship. So a woman
Right.
who is true to her essence, she knows who she is. She's not trying to flaunt, trying to keep up with the Joneses. Like she's just her own person. She understands who she is, and she accepts the way that God has made her. I see so many people like that just look like you can scroll like on social media and just like everybody looks the same. You know, like
Right.
why are
Mhm.
we not following our uniqueness and just who we are? And you know, what's another trait? Listening.
Listening.
Listen,
Interesting.
listening, not hearing.
Hmm.
Another problem too in talking with both men and women, you all naturally talk more, right? And so whenever you do meet a man and he does start to talk, he does start to open up, really listen to him. And what I mean by that is listen and pay attention to who he is. Because when a man starts to speak, we're speaking facts. We're speaking how we truly feel, not an emotional moment, you know, especially when we let our guard down. But I see, you know, a lot of times on the opposite side, whenever I'm talking to women, women want to talk, and want you to listen to them and understand them, but don't reciprocate that same form of love, you know?
Right.
And so that's why a lot of men don't like to open up. That's why a lot of times we go into our man cave or we just get quiet and we shelter,
Right.
because when we do open up, it's like either you're not, I've already told you something in the past about me and you're
Right.
not listening, you're hearing, or you say something that's demeaning when I do open up. So a
Right.
woman that values her space, again, just going back to the whole like security thing, is secure in who she is. And so whenever we mesh and we come together, I can trust you and be vulnerable around you, and I know that you're listening, and you're listening to understand, not just hearing me just because he's like, oh, he just needs somebody to talk to. Like I think that's a key part in a marriage, is being able to come together like a business meeting. Let's discuss like, hey, this is what's going on. I'm weak today, and listening and helping me build back up so that way I can do the same for you, you know?
Yeah.
So
And I love this, girls. You have to listen to these gems because I think you said a good point. Listen and not just hear. And again, that's why I really appreciate you coming on my channel, because we I think we don't understand enough that the other gender is not wrong for the way they feel. They're just different. And I think part of being able to listen is really knowing and understanding the other person doesn't mean that. It's just that's how they feel. It's not how I feel. But if I choose to respect that, I will actually gain more from the relationship than when I choose to just blame and shame them. And I think If you truly listen to hear or to understand someone, you will see that if somebody tells you, I don't want to be in a relationship, it's not because they actually, want to like reject you, but it's because that's just how they feel. So I really appreciate that. Let's look at two more questions. Sarah said, what do you think about a guy who told me I think marriage is the maximum point that God can do for us? Then he said, let's leave it to God, and then we've stopped talking for months. So I think what she means is that he gave it to God, but he's stuck. So maybe that he does that mean he's interested or not? I guess that's the question. Sarah, if you are still on, let us know what is the question.
I'm kind of reading through it. It's kind of seemed like in a way he might have even used God as a cop out. He evidently wasn't really feeling you, all the way. Especially if he stopped, talking to you for 4 months. There's a reason behind it. A lot of times, especially when breakups happen, it's hard for a lot of guys who are not emotionally intelligent to give you a direct answer and just saying like, "Hey, I don't think you're the one." And I think that's just where we have to get to, especially as men stepping back up to the plate and being leaders like God intended us to be. We have to be more direct. Even if it hurts some feelings, you're saving more headaches and heartaches down the line by just being upfront and direct. But at the same time, women, you have to be able to understand when a man speaks and he's just speaking with his logical mind, he's not being emotional, to really listen and to take it in like he's serious, and learning when to I thank God that women are soft and women are emotional, but being able to control that at the same time and not just be a machine gun that's just always all over the place emotionally at times. I know I kind of got around the question, but yeah, I think part of like his reason was being a cop out.
Yeah, I see that the same way. I think he just used it in order to justify him not really being interested. And again, Sarah, here it's not your point, your position now to go find him, go pursue him, go make him do something. A man that is interested is going to pursue you. It's as easy as that, and as hurtful as it sounds. I think we just need to call it the way it is. And the last question we're just going to go to Christina is it okay to encourage a guy to ask you out?
Uh, it's one of those things like a guy can appreciate when you like let him know that you're interested as well.
Right.
Right. But then again, still make him work, you know? So it's like, okay, if you're being hunted, just step out a little bit like, okay, I'm out here in the woods, but then kind of back up a little bit, match the energy, as he pursues, okay, you can, let loose a little bit. But just matching, not being so easy and just giving in just because you got the attention of one guy. I see that so often. Just we get so weary and we're just so ready to be with someone, not ready to be married. We're just so ready to be with someone. We're tired of being by ourselves and ready to fill that void. But yeah, I mean, encourage him. Just let him know that, hey, like I'm interested, but then back off. Like don't be, over texting him. Like match the energy. Still let him pursue you. But yeah, it's okay to let him know you're interested.
Yeah. And also, Christina, I think what is really important is you set the tone from the beginning. I think, again, if you really appreciate being pursued, but you come off really strong in the beginning, you will put him into a position where he feels like he can be passive and have more of a feminine approach. Which, if that's not what you want, you don't want to go in strong. So definitely, only put in as much as you feel comfortable with. And a lot of times for women, it really means to, take a step back, like Caleb just said. Okay, girls, if there are no more questions, I think we can wrap it up here. 43 minutes.
Okay.
Caleb, thank you so much. Girls, I will have all of Caleb's information in the description below. He has a YouTube channel, so definitely make sure that you head on over to his channel, that you subscribe, that you watch and like his video. Remember to like, and then also follow him on Instagram. You get daily motivations in the morning, which is so refreshing. So I'm pretty sure if the girls follow you, they will definitely benefit from it. Karen, yeah, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much. And girls, we will have these conversations every 2 weeks from now on. We will have someone else come on here and share with us what men think so that we can use it to our advantage and get the outcome we want. See you guys. Thank you so much for being on here.